VikesNow, Josh Frey. It's week 1, homie. How are you?
I'm doing good, my man. How are you?
Not bad at all. We are 4 days away and then probably 3 days away from folks watching this on Thursday or whatnot. So, this is one of our first actionable shows. Well, it is our first actionable show where we talk about regular season football. And so, I've asked you to come up with your top storylines, things to watch for. And I believe you have 6 of them. Is that correct for Vikings Packers?
Got six of them for you. Yep.
Tell me your what's your game day routine in general? Do you just hang out at the house? Do you go to the bar? What do you do?
So typically, I usually just hang out at the house. I usually get up, go for a little run early in the morning just to
Okay.
get the juices flowing, wake up a little bit, and then come home, make a nice breakfast, get ready to watch some football all afternoon.
Okay, and then that first of all, that's marvelous. Second of all, do you do it cover to cover from noon until 10:30 p.m. Central Time?
Oh yeah, yep,
Okay.
cover to cover, baby.
Okay, so you're one of the good ones. Yeah, there's some that will just watch their game and that's all they need, but then there's
No,
assholes
no.
like you and me that just can't get enough.
Yeah, especially in fantasy leagues, like you
Oh
got to watch
yeah.
all the games.
Oh yeah, for sure. How many fantasy leagues are you in?
I'm in four right now, so
Four.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I've given said this theory out loud on this show, but my theory is, and I think it's vindicated, is that if you do the homework on fantasy football in general, studious homework, not just like, oh yeah, it's day before my draft, I'll go grab a magazine. I mean, follow the shit all year. You can really do limitless leagues because once you know the product, like I'm in 7. And so I kid you not, I could do 20 just because I know the players that I like, players I don't like. And then I segregate time, whether it's Saturday night or in this case, Wednesday night, sit down and do all of your lineups. So that's the speech to give your loved ones if they say you're playing in too many fantasy leagues.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially if you know what you're targeting, you're doing the same guys every league. Like, why not? Why not hop in a bunch of them and you can win even more money that way?
And especially you who also is equally as heavy on the draft. So, the dudes that are coming up and a lot of times those are league winners if you find the right rookie
Oh yeah,
because
yeah,
there's always at least one and there's usually about 4 where if you grab the right one and avoid the busts, then that win your damn league.
for sure. Yeah, I know I grabbed a couple of them in our league, so I'm excited about
Yeah, well, I'm
that.
not on that one, be on your best behavior there. All right, Vikings Packers. The line has come down, at least per some sports book, to a 1.5 underdogs for the Vikings, and that's just because of the Packers' mystique and the Rodgers factor. But let's start. We'll go. Did you do them in order of importance, or not really?
Not necessarily. I kind of just did them randomly as they came to mind,
Okay,
but
that's
yeah.
fair. All right, let's go. Then we'll just go number 1, your storyline that you're watching, and hence your viewers should monitor.
So I think first and foremost, this has got to be one of the top storylines going into this game. Kevin O'Connell, his first game as a head coach. How's he going to do? So this could be one that we look back on. Man, it's the start of a great head coaching career. Or if it goes the other direction, man, he really shit the bed in that first one, and then that got off to a bit of a rough start. But I do think this is going to be a very interesting game, just because how he does his coaching, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I think he's a really good game manager that sort of in that area. So I think it's going to be an interesting one to watch. Hopefully, the Vikings come out on top and get him a 1-0 start. Nice clean slate for him.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it'll be also cool to watch the change of pace in terms of personality. We saw some of it in the preseason when he challenged that one call. He just kind of flipped the flag. Zimmer used to
Mm-hmm.
throw it and spit and be mad and stubborn, which I liked. I'm not going to sit there and bash that. I love that hard nosed way that he had. But you've got just the opposite, like even keeled, like doesn't look like he's going to get too high or too low. So yeah, and they're giving him baptism by fire. This is the first time in Vikings history with fans in attendance that the Vikings host Green Bay in week 1. And they just dropped it in the lap of the first year head coach. So I think tomorrow or Friday, I'm going to do my personal version of this, but this one will assuredly be on there because we don't like to say it out loud, but what if he sucks? What if he's
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
not ready for this and he's no good and we're 0-4 a month from now? We'll be like, oh God.
Or
So
like you just losing this game, there's definitely going to be some people like, I don't know about this guy. What did we do, guys? And then they could go win in week 2, and we'd
yeah,
all forget about it, at least until we play the Packers again. So
that's the pendulum. The saving grace for that crowd that will panic is that not too many folks, there are some, but not too many folks will do see I told you so about Zimmer. They won't say, well, we should go back to Zimmer, because in the aftermath of his termination, it kind of is universally accepted that it was time to move on, especially with players saying it's a brand new day and lighthearted atmosphere. So it's not quite like, we got rid of John Madden. It was
no.
kind of a guy that had become stale, at least with this enterprise. But I guess the only other thing would be the Harbaugh stuff. If O'Connell sucks, then you'd have to hear about, well, we should have got Harbaugh. He's guaranteed to bring a winning team. But
Maybe. Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know. Some of the things he said as Michigan's coach so far this year has been, I don't know if it's a good thing that it's probably a good thing that he stayed over there rather than come here. So
I'm with you, because the hilarious part is, so you remember covering this like you do, him being the coach of the Vikings was very real. Like, there were dudes at the University of Michigan, like reporters, that tweeted reports
mhm.
Harbaugh joining Vikings, not just clickbait, not just rumors. When he was coming to Minneapolis, I was like, God, they got a new head coach. But the weirdest thing about that entire conversation, interview, theory was that you went from a hard-nosed coach in Zimmer, and you're going to get a hard-nosed but wacky one, like
Right.
eccentric one on top of it.
Yeah, if there's anybody that's more wacky than Zimmer or hard nosed than Zimmer, it's definitely Harbaugh. Like just listen to some of the stories that his brother tells over in Baltimore. Like those dudes are hardcore.
Yeah, and if indeed they would have hired him, that would have indicated to me that, well, the owners have a type. They just
Oh yeah.
they like a dude who runs a ship that's old school. But none of that matters, because they did the opposite. They talked to him for 10 hours that day and said, go back home, and they got Kevin O'Connell. All right, so O'Connell's uh, opening salvo is one of your top storylines. What's number two?
Number 2 might be one that you disagree on, so I'm curious to see what you
Mm-hmm.
think about it. I think they need to get off to a fast start if they want to really turn this thing around and get into the playoffs this year. You brought in O'Connell, you kept Kirk Cousins, all these core guys that you had last year to really go and make a run at this thing in 2022. So I think you need to go out there, you need to get this victory in order to really get off to the right start and towards the playoffs this season.
Let's see. Well, I certainly endorse that happening.
Mm-hmm.
But the necessity of it, I get a little cloudy, because it's the Packers. And I think in all of this honeymoon of O'Connell, we forgot the Packers defense is absolutely marvelous. And it's
Right.
like a top 3 unit in the NFL. And I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that if the Vikings offense doesn't look high octane, it's not necessarily because they're terrible or this guy doesn't know how to coach. It's because you have a Packers defense that's probably the best you've seen in your lifetime, at least on paper. So
Mm-hmm.
while I, first of all, expect them to win, I think the Vikings will win a relatively close game. Um, if they, let's say they lost 27-24 and O'Connell and he couldn't get it done, if they came back and kicked some ass Monday Night Football, and then they come back against the Lions week
Yes,
3
Lions
at
week
home,
3.
and that better
Yep.
be a win. And then you got a 2-1. You're going across the pond. Suddenly you're 3-1, beating the Saints, who also have a good defense. I guess it's kind of on brand for me. I wouldn't, be driving home from Minneapolis going, son of a bitch, I hate this team. I would just be like, the Packers are good. I should have known this was going to happen. But in terms of setting the tone, especially for a first year head coach, I'm right there with you.
Yeah. The only thing I'd push back on a little bit, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with them losing like a close game this week, but then I feel like that week 2 in Philly, that kind of becomes a must-win game for me at least, especially if you want to turn this thing around and make the playoffs this year. Because I mean, you got Buffalo, you got New England, you got Dallas. Games in Detroit and at Soldier Field are never going to be like cakewalks, no matter how good those teams are. So the rest of the schedule, like it's easier than last year, but there's not a lot of gimmies in here where you can be like, yeah, this is probably going to be a for sure win.
Yep.
Like even that game against the Jets, that if Zach Wilson progresses a little bit more this year, I think that's a sneaky tough one too. Just looking at the schedule, there's not a lot of easy ones.
Yeah, and then I'm with you, because it's at home
Mm-hmm.
and it's 66,000 people and it's the first game for the head coach. It's going to be ruckus, and I'll be
Oh
there to
yeah.
make sure it's ruckus. So Yes, I can see what you're saying because you don't want a bad taste in your mouth. You don't want to A,
Right.
lose the Packers ever, B, lose with your head coach, and then C, at the beginning of a new era where you essentially kept the roster the same, despite some folks saying it was time to tear it down. One thing I thought of on the fly here that you brought to my attention, I might have to tweet this later, is 3 out of the first 4 games in terms of depth chart personnel, the defenses,
They're
Packers,
good.
Eagles, Saints,
They're
shit.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Like
you
even
could,
the Lions, like they're not going to be bad by any means. Like they're a feisty team, if nothing else. So
yeah. So you might get to the end of the month, circling, let's see, right after that London game, thinking, well, O'Connell doesn't have the special sauce on offense because they're just not hitting on all cylinders. Well, I don't know if anybody will have the nuance to say, well, you played the Packers, Eagles, and Saints, which I think is like a top 5 power rankings of defenses, isn't it?
yeah, those three. I think those three would all land in my top five for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. All right. Well, through the principles of detection, we figured that one out today on VikesNow. What's your
yeah.
third storyline?
Number three, I'm gonna go with the fan favorite Justin Jefferson. There's been a lot of hype around his year three going into the season with Kevin O'Connell as his coach, Kirk Cousins kind of opening up a little bit with the offense. And his road, if he's gonna do it, his road to 2,000 yards starts against Green Bay here, so he needs to get off to a fast start.
And are you endorsing this 2,000 yards, or if you were going to wager on it, would you do it?
I I think I would just because I wouldn't have until after we saw what happened with Cooper Kupp and the Rams last year. Like
I see.
normally I'm more on the side of, well, you need to kind of spread the ball out a little bit more. But what we saw with Kevin O'Connell do with Cooper Kupp last year and that Rams go for over 1,900 yards, lead the league in receptions and touchdowns, like that dude was incredible, and he was the reason that they won the Super Bowl down the stretch. Like they went to him over and over and over after OBJ went down, and he just delivered. And if Justin Jefferson can do that, I think that's the ticket for the Vikings this year.
And I think the good part of that prediction, and then in general, Jefferson, I think we're at the spot where he's almost like Giannis for the Bucks. Like you just know he's going to have at least 20 and 10 every night. So with
Mm,
Jefferson, not necessarily 100 yards every game, but 1,400 yards, barring injury, is afoot. I think that's how good he is. I don't think there would be a third year slump or anything like that. So the good news is that it's like guaranteed production based on his talent. And if you have finally unshackled the run first tendencies of Zimmer, that's why all this smoke about 2,000 yards or MVP, that's why it's out in the atmosphere, is because what the hell could he do when he's targeted even more than he already has been?
yeah,
It's
for
pretty
sure.
wild.
No, it's. I think it's gonna be a fun year for him. So it's. I'm excited to get it started this Sunday.
What do you got for number 4? Storylines, Vikings, Packers.
Number four, another guy. He's been under scrutiny throughout his entire career. I think it's time for Kirk Cousins to start shaking that persona of just being the stat patter that so many of the national fans think that he is. If he goes out there and just runs this offense, goes out and, like you said, top 5 defense in Green Bay, if he can put up 30 points on them, I
Mm-hmm.
think that he starts to shed that sort of persona that he's carried with him throughout his career of just being the 500 quarterback that doesn't know how to get it done in big games.
Amen. And then it's kind of apropos that you bring that up because this morning, all of a sudden, Michael Irvin picked Cousins as his MVP candidate. And I don't know of any preordained love that Irvin has ever had for Cousins. So it feels objective in that sense. And then about 12 hours later, Kyle Brandt on Good Morning
Mhm.
Football ripped off his coat or whatever it was and has Cousins as his jersey and hence MVP pick.
His
So
tucked in jersey.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And he did that symbolically because he said that's how Kirk would do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, not that those two mentions mean anything, but it is a thermometer of where we're at. You'll remember because you write about this stuff ad nauseum. After the draft, after free agency, after the draft, it was kind of like most of the world was like they're going 8-9 again, they're going 9-8. And then slowly throughout the summer, Rich Gannon said Cousins is capable of throwing 5,000 yards, and Justin Jefferson is on a Jerry Rice like path. And then here and there, Dan Orlovsky said that's a sleeper team. That dude that does the podcast with Patrick Peterson, his cousin Brian McFadden, says the Vikings are going to the NFC Championship. So gradually, step by step, even sports books have bumped the Vikings up by an extra win. It's like the rest of the world figured out what we've been talking about for, gosh, 6, 7 months now.
Yeah. It's crazy what happens when you get bored in the summer. You finally start looking at some of these teams.
Oh, I hear you. All right, so that was number 4. Got 2 left. What is number 5?
Number five is One that I might be most intrigued by going at least into this game, the meet at the quarterback 2.0, Darius Smith and Daniil
Mm-hmm.
Hunter out there on the defensive front. I think these two, if they can stay healthy, they're poised for a massive year. They were two of the best pass rushers in 2019 before injuries got the best of them over the past couple seasons, at least for Daniil Hunter, especially
Mm-hmm.
Darius missed most of last year too. Um, I think if they can put some pressure on Aaron Rodgers in this game, especially Za'Darius going against his former team, he's going to have a little bit extra motivation. If they can put some pressure on him, force him to get the ball out early, some inexperienced receivers, it's going to be tough for them to win this game.
And ordinarily, whether it's Zimmer, Leslie Frazier, now O'Connell, when the Vikings beat the Packers, it's because they harassed Rodgers all day. I think I pulled the numbers on this. There's only one or two times since Rodgers has been the starter that they've ever beat him and the Packers while having less than 4 sacks. I think it's like once or twice. I think once was last year too in that game at US Bank Stadium. But the blueprint, at least for the Vikings and probably the rest of the world, is to get to Rodgers. You can't just let him be back there. You can't just hope that, all right, well, our pass rush is shitty today. We'll see how it works, because he will find a way, no matter who your cornerbacks are, to exploit them. So I think in that vein, the twosome of Hunter and Za'Darius is kind of unsung. Now, when he signed in March, it was a big deal because they're like, holy crap, this is what they're doing. They're going all in again. But we already know what Hunter is capable of when he's not injured. He's the straw that stirs the drink. Now, Za'Darius is kind of just an add-in that you hope you get the purest peak prime form from. And then if you do, my goodness, you're going to have two of these guys, and it rivals like Bosa and Khalil Mack with the Chargers. Like those types of tandems, it's just as good. But it's just all a top-heavy thing right now because you're banking on their injuries just being something of the past.
Yeah, I mean, even looking past this Packers game, like playoffs, you go
Mm-hmm.
against guys like Tom Brady, who, as old as he is, he's not going to be able to move around the pocket very well. If you can put some pressure on him, you might be able to go in there and win that game. Guys like even like Jameis Winston in New Orleans, he's not the most mobile guy either, especially after coming
Mm-hmm.
off his knee surgery here. So you get some pressure on those guys, even throughout the rest of the league outside of Green Bay. You got a really good chance of winning any game.
I'm with you. Somebody asked me in the Purple PTSD mailbag who my X Factor player was for this game, and it was Darius Smith. Because, like I said, we already know what we're getting from Hunter, assuming he doesn't get hurt in the first drive. Za'Darius is kind of like going to be 30 years old tomorrow. So
Mhm.
you're wondering what version of him you're getting. Now you're getting an ultra motivated one who wants to stick it to his former team, but he alone can determine, if Hunter is running wild or simply freeing up space for Za'Darius, and Za'Darius is getting to Rodgers, that really matters. I know sometimes the temptation to sit down and just watch all these touchdowns fly onto the board and big plays, but getting after the quarterback will pretty much decide games, especially when elite quarterbacks are involved. So I think Za'Darius, his performance can almost alone decide, how this defense ticks.
Yeah, I think it's also worth mentioning like Za'Darius, he's got experience in a 3-4. He's been
Mm-hmm.
with Mike Pettin for multiple years of his career. Even though the defenses weren't super great there, at least he knows the structure of
Mm-hmm.
everything that's going on in this defense. So I think he's off to just getting an advantage with that already. So
I hear you. All right, what is your final storyline for our viewers to monitor on Sunday at 3:25 p.m.?
final one, and this one is gonna cause some praises, I think. Aaron Rodgers, he's going into age 39 season this
Mm-hmm.
year. He doesn't want to play too much longer. He said he doesn't want to play till 45 like Tom Brady. And I think this is a story that might be monitoring like year to year basis, but could this be his last game in Minnesota?
Mm-hmm.
He's under contract through 2026, but I have a feeling he's not going to be playing throughout that entire contract. So especially if the Packers like don't do super well this season, I don't know. Could he call it quits at the end of the year? He's almost done it the past 2 years. So
Yeah, it's something in the aquifer, the water there. But these quarterbacks, these Hall of Famers in Green Bay, once they get towards the end of the line, they start to dance and they start to toy with your emotions. Do I want to come back or don't I? It's so bizarre. And Rodgers didn't feel like this 3 years ago, but all of a sudden it turned into the exact same thing that Favre did every year. It was a little reduced this year. I think with the suspense only lasted 3 weeks or whatever. But yeah, it's the same stuff all over again. And yeah, there is. I mean, he hasn't asked for like a Jeter retirement tour, but to your point, conceivably, this could be it. And assuming that the Vikings don't win the division and host the Packers for a divisional or wild card game, yeah, this could be his last hurrah. And who knows what the Packers would be after that, if they would really go with Jordan Love or start fresh and finally find a guy who's just average. Oh God, I can't wait for it. I cannot wait for it. It has to happen in my lifetime. I think that one of these days we look up and they've got like, gosh, Jameis Winston type,
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield, where it's like, oh, he's good, but he's not going to haunt my dreams.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So I won't talk to you, at least on VikesNow, until after this. So give me your score prediction, Vikings Packers.
Score prediction. I think I'm going to go 27-24. Sounds like a good score going with the Vikings. I think they're going to pull this one off, get off to a good start.
Is that a Joseph game winner, like as the buzzer sounds, or is that like a defensive stand?
Let's go with the theatrics. It's a Joseph game winner.
Back-to-back U.S. Bank Stadium Packers killer game winners for Greg Joseph. All right, any closing arguments from you, good sir?
Let's go Vikes, baby. Go Vikes.
All right, and where can we find you? Purple PTSD, editor there now officially, and where else?
Purple PTSD, Vikings territory. I'm doing some stuff pretty much every other day. So you can find me over there too. Twitter, fried_chicken. Also, I wrote my very first mock draft of the 2023 draft.
Never too soon.
That's coming out tonight, and might have found the Vikings QB of the future. So stay tuned for that.
What a teaser that is. All right, well, check that out, and then we'll be back. We'll have to figure out what this show is on next Wednesday, because we'll want to decompress for maybe 10 minutes, the Packers beating the Packers, of course. And then we'll want to preview the Monday Nighter. So we'll probably do that, but we will see you next Wednesday. Okay, sir?
Sounds good, my man.
All right, Skol, baby.